Hello, everybody. I'm Chris, CMO at Infinity Group. Welcome to another episode of Doing It Differently. I am joined by my favourite CTO and CEO, Rob Young and Tristan. Do you want to give us a hello, gentlemen?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, Rob, CEO here at Infinity Group.
Hi, Chris. Tristan, CTO. Good to be with you today.
So in today's session, we're going to be looking at measuring what actually matters when it comes to transformation. So who do we start with here? So Rob, from your perspective, and I guess a big challenge that businesses have is that in many instances, transformation metrics can often feel quite vague, but our results have actually been something that's quite interesting. And I think particularly from what I can see out in the market, it's very difficult to find organizations actually putting numbers against how they've gone about their AI transformation. So from your perspective as a business leader and a business owner, what does transformation success mean for you or us?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a few aspects there. So better customer experience, absolutely. Better employee experience, giving the team the tools that they need to succeed, and actually getting the mundane tasks away from them that they don't really enjoy, so they can really kind of focus on adding value to clients. And then obviously, you've got the kind of bottom line or the numbers where you can use automation that's is going to impact that part of the business.
Absolutely. And Tristan, I guess from your perspective as a CTO, is there anything on top of that you'd add from your role perspective?
Yes, I think agree with Rob. We're looking at those organization level key metrics. So more revenue, less cost, less risk, whatever those things are. But for me, I'm also thinking about if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, kind of metrics around AI, but also the things that are enabling it. So we're looking at things like, we know for our kind of agentic customer service function to work, that needs to be fed knowledge. So I'm looking at how many knowledge articles are we creating and updating on a weekly basis. So there's things like that a lot of them are data related, but how are we measuring the things that are going to enable AI to work well and be accurate and really kind of drive efficiency? So it's kind of measuring those input bits, because we know if we can incrementally improve how we behave there in terms of the quality of the data and the completeness of it, then measure the next layer on, how many tickets are we actually closing using AI? How many HR questions are we routing to a bot to answer? We know those things are then going to drive the top level outcomes of reducing cost or increasing revenue. So it's about kind of tracking it all the way up for me, I think.
Okay, so a few things that I can pick out there are better for customer experience. So that's in the context of being able to deliver a better service, NPS, CSAT scoring against the services that we deliver. Employee experience, and I can speak from experience. This is something that we look at very, very closely as a senior leadership team here at Infinity. We've got the time saved element in there as well. Obviously, there's the bottom line element. So to your point, Twiz, it's about more revenue, less cost, which is fairly obvious. And the other thing there is actually providing measurable KPIs against, actually we're implementing these things. How can we actually measure it and improve it? So I guess one of the top line stats that I'd be keen to get your thoughts on, and a lot of other businesses are looking to replicate this journey, and that's that sort of more revenue, less cost perspective. So from us as a business, what we've actually been able to do over the last sort of 12 months is actually demonstrate a 35% growth without actually adding in any additional headcount. And how does that translate into the metrics that you prioritize at an exec level?
Going back to the things that we're measuring, right, to drive those outcomes, that's exactly the outcome we're after, right? How can we widen that gap between the revenue and cost, right? Because that's where the money's made. But going back to those principles, we know there's kind of building blocks that we need to drive that efficiency. So we know we've got to drive the right behaviour in terms of having good data and consolidating tools to then drive the efficiency through AI. So that's all really good. But what we've also seen that's driven that metric is the combining of the people that we've got that are experts in their area, so that domain expertise, plus the tools that we've been able to give them, has enabled people in specific teams to really turn the dial and drive that increased revenue without the additional headcount. So if we look in our managed services function, there's people in there that really embraced the technology, but they also really deeply understand our customers and the processes that we need to run. So they're the kind of the stars, if you like, that are taking those two things and combining them at the right time to really drive that outcome. So it's giving them the tools they need, it's giving them the platform that they need, and the freedom, I guess, to go and say, I've got an idea and I think I can turn it into something, and then making sure we can deliver that in a controlled way. Because without that combination, if you just had the tools, you're not going to get anywhere, because you need the experts, and if you've got the expertise without the tools, you're also not going to get anywhere. So it's been a really important coming together of those two things.
Absolutely. And Rob, a question for you is what sits at the top of your, what would you call it, the scorecard when it came to looking at investing in transformation for us as a business? Obviously, this was something we looked at, we started the journey on about 3 years ago when I sort of first joined the business. We were only just sort of starting that journey, and here we are at the end of it. What was the first sort of primary driver for you?
It's a few things. I mean, fundamentally, this is what we do, and we felt that we wanted to tread that path that our customers were going to walk. We wanted to use the technology that we sell, and we wanted to help all of our teams understand where the value is for clients, because we understand it's not an IT thing, right? Transformation, AI, all of this stuff, it's not an IT job anymore. It's a business job. Yeah, wherever you are in the business, you need to be thinking about these processes and these tasks and how you work. So there was that element we really wanted to understand. We really wanted to take the customer journey to another level, the customer experience. How can we really change the dial? How can we add value to what we're doing within our industry, and how can we really turn that on its head? And then, operationally, how can we be more efficient? Because we're a business that have been around for 25 years. Like many businesses that have been around a long time, you end up with a lot of technical debt, a lot of different systems, a lot of siloed data everywhere. And we kind of wanted a reset. We wanted to go, right, let's just pause for a minute. Instead of just diving into another system, to another program, why don't we just think about where we're going, what we want to do, and how we're going to do it. And the Microsoft stack was perfect for us, because it enabled us to bring those productivity tools together with those business applications of ERP and CRM, and really drive something that's different and quite unique, I think.
Absolutely. And so just picking up on something you said there, so Tristan, a question for you. Everybody loves a data project, right? How did you go about making sure that you have buy-in from people throughout the business? It is a painful process, right? How did you go about, I guess, using metrics and where we're moving towards? How did you go about getting people on board for what is, quite frankly, a horrible project to undergo as a business?
Yeah, so I think it's about it not being a one-off exercise, right? That message. So it's not we're going to do this thing to you and off we go and do it and cause a load of pain everywhere. You need to be constantly talking to people and reaffirming the purpose and the why and the reason why you're doing those things, and then get people starting to see value relatively quickly. So the way I kind of described it to our teams is, feel like a bit of a sideways move at start when you go from a thing that does this over here to a thing that does this over here. That's hard to kind of see a load of value in that. So you've got to keep thinking about, there's a bigger picture reason why we're doing this and doing this consolidation. And there's a few kind of light bulb moments in there. I think when we brought our kind of billing processes into our core platform, And then that then allowed our service teams, sales teams, marketing teams to all see kind of subscription information and product data and trends and things in there. That was a moment where a lot of people then started to realise actually the power of having all this in one place is huge. But there was more work to do after that, still loads more data to move and sort out. So yeah, it's about keep going back to the purpose, and this is why we're doing it, and this is how it's going to benefit you, and this is how it's going to benefit the people around you, customers, staff, everyone.
Absolutely. And I guess, Rob, a question back to you, and I think a lot of businesses struggle with this, and often with large scale digital transformation projects, it can be difficult to demonstrate that return on investment when you're looking at doing a project, I guess. So from your perspective, what advice would you give to other businesses who are going and starting to look at this re-platforming journey so that they can assess that this is actually the right move for them as a business?
Yeah, I think building that overall kind of business case, proving the business value from a very kind of high level is important. I think focusing on the quick wins. So, ERP is a good example there. And Tristan mentioned earlier, there's a bunch of tools in there around payables, expenses, sales orders that Microsoft have built AI agents to help you with. You can very quickly demonstrate value by deploying a tool like Business Central. As soon as you demonstrate value of AI, then that gives the business, not just the leadership team, but also everyone working in the business, the confidence that they can actually use these tools to really drive change. And then you get more confident, and then you start doing bigger projects on taking on bigger pieces of work, and you get to a point where I guess we are now, where we are fully platformed. So the data piece is, although it's still ongoing, the data piece is done. We're now at the point where we're adding value quite quickly, because we haven't got the complexity of managing multiple systems and multiple integrations.
And what advice would you give to organizations that are looking at a project like this and thinking, right, I'm being asked for ROI now? Because I think what you've just said there is it's almost like a bit of long-term pain for that long-term gain, and then that's where you then can start accelerating that value.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the kind of the building the business case helps to start with. So you can take the technology and the bits and bytes out of it, and you can say, right, this is what we want to achieve as a business. We can put numbers to each kind of area of the business where we can transform. Businesses have to run as well, by the way. Business as usual is still there. We've still got to get up. We've still got to make money. We've still got to operate. So that is an important factor. But yeah, looking at the business case and getting the quick wins to give the board or the leadership team or the teams the confidence to start on this journey is really, really key.
Okay, and then so speaking of numbers, so as part of our process, we've been able to save £1 million plus in projective savings across the business, whether that's taking out some tooling, not necessarily needing to hire where we've got automation in process. We've saved 180 hours per week as an output from our re-platforming. So Tristan, I guess maybe a question for you here is that how does a business, or how did we go about proving that those gains aren't just theoretical, but are actually something that are real and repeatable that we can take forward?
Yeah, good question. We do the same thing for us as we do for our customers, right? So you've got to measure this stuff at the start. So as part of our enterprise architecture engagements that we run with customers, did a similar thing ourselves. So let's look at all the places that we spend money, right? What subscriptions have we got? What services are we using? And where's all that money going? So you've got to go through that exercise to effectively create your benchmark to say, I'm either saving money or I'm not, right? If you don't measure it at the start, then you can't prove the value at the end. So that's a component of that enterprise architecture piece, as is looking at the big kind of picture roadmap, dividing that up into manageable things and pieces of work, and then the prioritization piece, we do a difficulty and importance matrix, we call it. So we're talking there about, how do we deliver measurable impact early? That's about saying, right, let's pick the high impact, easy stuff. So then there'll be things that are spread around that axis, and difficult might mean there's multiple teams involved, or the data's, particularly hard work or whatever. It's not necessarily just how long the thing will take. If you pick the kind of high value, low impact places to start, you can prove value against your benchmark that you've measured before, and then that kind of acts as a catalyst to then drive the rest of the program as well. Because if the first thing you do doesn't deliver any value and doesn't benefit anyone, you're going to struggle to get buy-in to carry on that program, right? So it's important that you start with the good stuff.
So what happens in the instance where a financial outcome isn't necessarily always immediate? So what role do other leading indicators, or have other leading indicators played in us being able to demonstrate our return? So for example, the fact that we've got cleaner data.
So I think stuff like, and a good example of that is we want to improve our customer experience, right? So we know that we need to measure that, and we need to see it improve, and there's various different ways to capture that. They kind of one-off NPS surveys, ongoing measurement around tickets and that kind of thing. For us, that's kind of top metric, right? So happy employees, happy customers, and then you'll know that will then drive the other stuff we're interested in, because happy customers spend more. Happy employees are delivering a better service that drives happier customers, that drives people to spend more. So it's thinking about what that kind of value chain is. So you're right, you got there's the kind of quantitative number stuff, which is quite black and white. Either the number's gone up or down, whichever way you want it to go. But there's also the qualitative stuff that's as important at driving that. But you need to think about how you measure that a bit differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rob, I guess a final question for you around the sort of scorecard and metrics and how do we measure. How do you go about ensuring that your scorecard or the metrics that you're measuring are actually delivering value and aren't just vanity metrics?
Oh, good question. I think I'm just going to repeat what Tristan says. I think our key metrics is our number one is employee engagement, and that's a combination of things, right? That's not just the technology they use and the systems we put in. That's about us as an organisation and the kind of values as an organisation, the way we think about things, how we're giving people a purpose, and what purpose do we have as a business. And so that's kind of our North Star, I suppose. And then everything kind of feeds down from that. What elements are we measuring underneath that? Whether it's bottom line, whether it's increased amount of closed tickets, or whether it's the increase in billing, the scalability of the business. We're maybe bringing in, if you're bringing in acquisitions, for instance, and how you kind of able to manage that buy and build process. Different businesses are going to have different priorities, but from our point of view, it starts with the people, goes on to the clients, and improving that customer service, because we feel that those two are intrinsically linked. And then ultimately we have the view that actually the rest of it is going to take care of itself, although we do measure the numbers around the P&L and stuff like that.
Yeah, brilliant. Final question to you both. If you could go back to 3 years ago, looking at what we've achieved now, is there anything that you would do differently or measure differently?
Good question. Obviously, you'd like to do it all faster. I don't think that's ever different. I think we probably did a good job of putting things in the right order, in terms of going back to that point of how do we deliver value early, looking at the kind of scale of teams that we were delivering to at the start as kind of high impact stuff across the whole sales team. Got that in early, got some value out of that. If we were to do things differently, I think 3 years ago was a very long time when we think about AI and the kind of curve of innovation that's happened recently. So it would have been hard to predict. And we're lucky we basically made the right call to enable all of that AI capability that we've got today. So we're using a load of first party agents because we made some calls back then before they even existed. But I guess if we could have seen further into the future, it would have been to really stay aligned to that platform approach, putting the data front and center to enable that AI capability that we're seeing today.
Nice. Well, it's a shame you didn't have your crystal ball there, mate, I think. Rob, anything from your perspective?
Yeah, I second that. We were very pragmatic about our approach, and different businesses again will have different priorities. For instance, we had a PSA tool that was coming up for retirement, and you may have an ERP platform or CRM that might be a date in time, or that you've got to work towards, and it certainly was for us. And so we knew we had to work through the systems in an orderly way, in the right order to deliver value to the teams at the right time. So yeah, that was important. And we knew we had belief in Microsoft because we knew what they were doing around AI. And as Tristan said, that they didn't have all these agents, and agents weren't even a thing, 18 months ago, a year ago. But we knew that this stuff would be coming. So again, we just got our kind of heads down, focused on the basics, focused on, module by module, piece by piece, building the building blocks. And now we're able to reap the rewards because, as Tristan said, Microsoft have got, thousands of engineers building these first party agents. And as I said before, it's easy to build an agent. It's really tough to build a good agent. So the stuff they're producing and the way they think about it is, less agents, but good quality agents. So that's what they're doing. And then obviously, really thinking about the business case, and how those agents are going to actually add value to the customer experience and our employee experience.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks, Chris.
Lovely to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, mate.